So I'll start. I'm going to talk about how to get designers involved in your project. So a bit even more basic than Raghu's talk before. So yeah, I also work on NextCloud in the design team since a long time already. And so the short story of how to get designers involved is basically go to opensourcedesign.net/jobs and post what you need on the job board, on our job board of the open source design collective. But the long story is a bit longer, and I'm going to use examples that we learned from working on NextCloud and that I also learned from working in other communities. And it's, very, very basic things which have a lot of impact. So can I have a show of hands? How many people work on an open source project? Okay. How many of you do not have any designer involved in that project? Okay. Or somewhat, maybe also. So this will be very useful for you, but this will also be very useful for people who are designers who work on a project and who want to improve. So even though it's kind of, or I consider them very basic things, or I keep repeating them in projects, I think a lot of people or a lot of projects still don't do them. So you'll see then. Just a small word about NextCloud. You might have heard about the whole OwnCloud NextCloud fork. So short story, NextCloud is a community fork of OwnCloud because we were unhappy with some things, for example, that not everything was open source, and a bunch of other things. So you can ask me later about it. But anyway, this NextCloud is like an open source alternative to Dropbox and Google products for file sync, contacts, calendar, email, video chat, stuff like that. So it's quite an extensive project. You already heard about Raghu, that he maintains the calendar or co-maintains the calendar as designer. So we have a bunch of components, and there's lots of things that we learned during the years. So first thing of 4 basic things is to establish a culture of design. So I was, back when it was still OwnCloud, I was like the 4th or 5th contributor, and I was the first designer in the project. And it was when we were very few people, and there wasn't even a company yet, and it was just like a few people hacking on at a table and stuff. So the very first thing I did, because I come from a design background and not from like a programmer or open source background, very first thing I did was look at this and say, what the fuck is this? So this, you can even see, like, I had trouble fitting it on the slide because there's so much stuff on it and so misaligned. And that's the OwnCloud 1 installation. It's pretty. I mean, I could point out like what's wrong with it, like alignment of the field labels to the left, the password, you need to retype the passwords, it's pretty much a drag. You need to choose the data directory, or you can change it, which I don't even care about. Force SSL, like, just do it. All this stuff, like date format, what does G even mean? I have no clue. Probably you can tell me, but I don't even care. And then one of my biggest problems with the whole thing is the database. Like, I remember horror nightmares of copying and finding database credentials somewhere in some weird other subfolder, or asking my web host for that. And even with like a bit of nerdy skill, that was difficult. So there is also like a technical choice to usability in some sort, and that being how it looks like now, that's the installation now. You see there's no database field by default because we use SQLite by default. It's not 100% advised to use it for big installations, but that allows us, because SQLite, if you know it or not know it, it's just a single file, and you don't need to create any username, password, credentials, or whatever. It can all be done by the web server. So it's a technical decision that allows us to actually make it so simple. You just need to choose an admin username and password. We could just also like directly log you in and give you the credentials, or have default credentials, but that would result in a lot of insecure installations. So we don't do that. But yeah, we make it, I'd like to think, even simpler than the WordPress 5-minute install. yeah, but you can still change storage database, so you can still modify two things. One is the database, so you can change it to MySQL or PostgreSQL or whatever you want, whatever you implement, and then also to you can change the storage path so that you can store it somewhere else, and all the rest is just done automatically. So yeah, so it's just username and password. It's basically, this is very similar to just the login screen, actually, and that's very simple. That still, though, leaves you with, you need to download it, you need to set the permissions and stuff like that. So you always need to know that in open source we have this additional problem. We don't have a sign-in button on the page, we have a download button, right? So that's a very, very different thing. So yeah, but that gets easier in some sort. Also, technical reason with PHP 7, I think, at least, because you don't need to mess around with permissions so much anymore or on certain servers. So a lot of technical things interweave with the design decisions or with how the UX is at the end. And in this case, UX is, of course, the user experience of admins installing the software. Okay, so that's the first thing. And I think I've been talking so long about it now because I think it's so important that the setup process is easy, because that's the first reason people turn around and don't use your project, like website and installation process, I would say. Next thing is you have to care about details. So, for example, here we have a colleague of mine. He's actually more of a developer, but does a bit of front end. And yeah, he opened that issue, or we basically did it together. At every meetup we now do, we have 4 meetups during the year. They're like planning meetups or working meetups for the next version, and they're open, so everyone can actually attend. And what we established during these meetups is that we sit in a meeting room and we install the newest version, or the current development version, and we just click through it as if we were like people new to the project, and we just point out every single small thing. So you see, like, there's like wrong capitalization, for example, or white space issues, or some icon errors, like it's white instead of black and stuff like that. It's very, very detailed things. So that establishes a general culture of design, a general culture of you probably heard about the no broken windows policy. So if you don't see anything wrong, then you're also less inclined to do wrong choices, or you encourage people to do similarly nice looking things. Right? So that's very important to do that with everyone, and everyone is in that room, like all the developers, all the other people working on it. So yeah, it just it brings everyone together on this design or experience base. Second thing is be informative. So what does that mean? It's basically something such as simple as just putting screenshots in your README, in your repository README. And like a lot of projects I look at, I go to their GitHub or to their GitLab or to their repository anywhere, and they don't even have any screenshots, even though it is an app which probably has an interface, and there's like a ton of explanation, and it's like, it lists like, oh, we use like PostgreSQL and some blah 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 cluster with some AngularJS, and I don't even care about that when I want to use it. So basic thing, just a short explanation, like even those tags, I mean, are a bit nerdy, but that's okay. Just short explanation and just a nice screenshot so people can understand what they're actually looking at. So that's very important. That's one very small thing. So the people who raise their hands, if you don't do that yet, please do that now. And because this is this is also similar to the website. So if you don't have a website, you just have a repository, do this. If you have a website, make sure your website has short explanation and a screenshot. But most projects don't have a website yet, so just do this. Next, we scroll down in the README. And then we need some kind of a concise feature list explaining what the hell this actually does. So we have some funny emojis, also part of design, and we just list some features or some important functionality of the app and explain what it does. And then we even have some more nerdy info, like we say, if you want to send encrypted emails, just use this browser extension, and which libraries we use, for example, just for developers who also want to get involved. and also what we have planned for the coming versions. So it's kind of like, yeah, being informative and being open about your process. Then we scroll down even more, and the problem is always like, yeah, oftentimes people or projects don't even have any setup info, like how the hell do I make this thing run? Like I just download it and then what, right? You just clone the Git repository, which is already pretty difficult for many people. And then, yeah, I'm just left there and I see like an install.sh and I see like a grunt file or some shit like that, and I'm just utterly confused about what I need to do next. And so the one important thing is, do not assume that everyone knows what they need to do with a make file, or what they need to do if they see a make file or something like that. Just write it out and make sure that it's very few commands. So I'm actually still complaining about this, like about 2 commands. So if it can be, like, just make it make, or I mean nothing at all would be best. But if it actually needs to be, just make it 1 command, because this I always forget, like what I actually need to type. And yeah, so yeah, that's also another important thing. Like for people who are actually, who want to contribute and who are a bit more technical maybe, or less technical but would like to learn, just spell it out, like just write it out. And those are, yeah, the 3 important things in the README, actually, I would say. Then, third part, well, we also mentioned it, same thing, be welcoming. And I like to repeat it because it's super important, and I'd like to think that this is one of the big reasons why the NextCloud design team is so successful. The first thing, for example, is tying into the whole make or grunt file or whatever thing, is that you need to remove barriers to entry. For example, we had this issue, or we had this thought forever, like, oh, should we have some CSS preprocessor? CSS in this case also regarding design, right? So like, we could talk about, like, I don't know, using Composer for PHP, which we also do in some parts. But this specifically is about the CSS, so it also concerns front-end designers. And so one thought was, yeah, do we use SCSS? And we were discussing about it in the past already, and we were saying, no, we didn't really want to use it because, like, then people need to compile it. And then this one contributor said, well, there is this PHP library which directly compiles it. So, and NextCloud being a PHP app, you don't need to do anything else, right? So actually, it's seamless. So, and I said, okay, if you can do it like that, like if you provide a pull request, and if you make it, if you rewrite it, and if you make it so that it just works, then that's okay. But otherwise, it's a barrier to entry, and that's not okay. So yeah, we're on a good way. Like, this issue is still partly open, but most of it actually is moved already, and yeah, it's very cool. With the additional bonus of not making it any more difficult, except, you know, the SCSS syntax is like, I mean, it's almost the same as CSS, but it's very easy to learn. It's like not an entirely new technology. So you can have some optimizations, or you can have some cool tools, but you still need to keep in mind that it needs to be simple. Then, second thing, what Raghu also mentioned, I'm very happy that it's successful, or that it works, is 2 tags that we use, we use many tags, but these, I think, are one of the most important ones, or 2 of the most important ones for open source projects in general. One is the design tag. It's just like an umbrella tag for everything regarding interface design, UX design, any kind of design. We just chose the tag design. I actually got it from Mozilla, where they use 13 different tags, I think, like UX feedback, so if there's missing feedback, or if there's a spinner showing too long, then UX wording, I think when the language is too technical or not understandable. So we just grouped it to 1 design tag, because that makes stuff much simpler. And then also the starter issue, or junior job label, which is just for issues which are very good for people new to the project. So, and as you can filter with 2 tags, so you can combine these tags, and you can just see, oh, what can I do as a designer new to the project? So it's simple stuff like some logo or icon is misaligned, or there needs to be some CSS fixes, or something is broken in Safari or whatever. And yeah, some of the time, of course, we need to fix these things, but oftentimes we also just leave them open for a bit longer, intentionally, to get more people involved. And this is also perfect for events, for like small hackathons, for example, where for new people to get involved, that we have like a list of issues that need to be done. So that's very I would recommend that a lot. So everyone who raised their hands, again, if you don't have a design tag, if you don't have a starter issue tag, please create them now and add issues to it, like and open issues if you don't have them yet. Like if you know of design issues in your project, just open them and communicate them openly. So I'm very happy that our design team is actually like the biggest team in the entire organization, and I would say like it's a pretty big team for any open source project. And I mean, of course, some people are more active, some people are less active, but in general, it gives like a great feeling that you can always just mention, like GitHub has this @mention functionality, that you can just @NextCloud designers review please, or what do you think of this? And as there are so many aspects like Android app, calendar app, desktop and stuff like that, it's very cool that people get designers involved, and then also some of these designers are in individual teams of the apps, for example. So thanks to all these folks contributing. So last thing is talk about design, like make it an actual topic. This is similar to the culture of design. Actually say it in, I don't know, in tweets or in communication. Don't just say, hey, we do a developer meetup. Just say, either we do a contributor meetup, or we do a developer designer meetup, or we do a contributor meetup, developers and designers are very welcome. Just basic stuff like that. For example, also publish updates which are specifically about design. This is, unfortunately, blogging is always something which is neglected, I have the feeling, and we are guilty of that too. But sometimes we have like design team updates, and it's like when we had a discussion at the conference, we have a bunch of info, how to get involved, some feedback, what was good, and then also we had 3 good questions that we discussed. For example, how is the design decided on, how to approach a new feature, and where is design help needed, or how do I ask for it as an app developer. So if it's discussed in this way at a developer meeting or developer designer contributor meeting, then it's good to notice like where you lack things and how to improve things. And coming back to the first point also, by the way, NextCloud conference will be in Berlin in August, and one thing that we say specifically there in the text, focus will be on coding, design, front-end work, and testing. So we actually mention it. It's just a small thing, right? We could just not mention that sentence, or we could just say, hey, every developer interested, just come around, but we specifically mention design, front-end work, so people of that area, designers, will feel welcome. And that's often all it takes for designers to contribute. So to recap, have a culture of design, establish a culture of design, of simple design preferably, to make it user-centered. Be informative, explain what your project does in easy terms on your website or in your README. Be very welcoming to new people in general. Like this doesn't only apply to projects who need designers. This applies to any project. And then also talk about design. Make it a topic and raise the profile of design. So thank you. Come contribute, and please leave feedback for the talks. And you can talk to me here or on Twitter or GitHub or whatever. Thanks a lot.